And I wanted your feed. Okay, you're nodding.
No,
Yes.
no. It's an interesting thing because I'm very pro AI, but also interested in just how the world is going to change with the revolution of AI. And of
Yes.
course, you see it all over the news at the moment that all of the big companies and governments are putting a lot of effort and financing into AI. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to English with Lewis, as always. And yeah, I'm turning it on after myself and my amazing guest today. We're just having a little bit of a chat to get started. I've just pressed record, and now, ta-da! Perform mode is on. So it's a pleasure to welcome another amazing guest today. I hope you enjoy this conversation and learn some new things about Steve, myself, and some new vocabulary. So without further ado, let's cut to the chase, get to the point, and well, have a bit of a chin wag. So, Steve, welcome. How are you?
Well, thanks. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm doing great as we are in summer mode, and a lot of my students are off on vacation. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to, as you said, have a little chin wag.
Excellent. So, if a lot of your students are on summer mode and they're off on their holidays, does that mean you've also got a little bit of downtime?
I think as English teachers, do we ever have downtime?
I mean, if you work for yourself and your own boss, then I guess it's up to you. Then you can choose to take time off and recharge your batteries, unwind, chill out, or I imagine it's your case like mine. We just keep going and we keep working.
Yeah, like how can I make this a video I'm filming in my vacation here? How can I incorporate that into an English lesson?
Right. So, on that note, do you have this obsession of, for example, seeing something and then thinking, ooh, that would be a good video, or hearing something on a series and then be like, ooh, that would be a good video? Does it happen to you?
All the time, all the time. So you're right. You're always in English teacher mode. Yeah. Like maybe you're watching a movie and then you're like, oh, that's not the right grammar.
Exactly. In
Was that the correct
particular,
collocation?
oh, no, they're wrong. What the hell? In particular with expressions, whenever I see random expressions on films or series, I'm like, ooh, I don't know how I'm going to make a video about it, but I'll just take a note and write it down for later.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, I got to make a note of that. Make a mental note. Yeah. Write it on my phone.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. But
Yeah.
anyway, enough of the chit chat. Tell everybody about you. Where are you from? What do you do? And what is your story?
Okay. So my name is Steve Ford, and I have had a YouTube channel since, okay, you're sitting down, since 2007.
Uh-huh. You were
And
ahead of the curve.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So when, when I started my YouTube channel and teaching online in 2007, a lot of people were like, what's YouTube? Like at that time, nobody knew. Like, I think it had only been around for like a year and a half or something like that.
Uh-huh.
So I started my YouTube channel back in 2007, and I was able to grow that to a sizable following. Then I got into Instagram, basically taking it seriously last year.
Mhm.
And I think that's how we connected because, you know, we're kind of in the same community on Instagram as well. So that's kind of my life story as far as being online and in social media. And way before that, I've been teaching English a long time. So I would say like since the early 90s, if you can believe it. So
Back.
it's been a while. So it's very interesting for me because throughout my career I can see, you know, how things have changed with technology, um, like I can still remember when I was giving class online, let's say back in 2008, 2009, and giving a demonstration lesson, and it was like completely foreign for somebody. They were like, wow, like I can study online. Like I know it sounds like very common nowadays, but at that
Yeah.
time it wasn't, you know. Yeah.
And like, is this a thing about you in general where you've always been like looking into new technologies or you've always been a tech savvy kind of person?
I've always tried to look ahead of the curve. Definitely look ahead of the curve. Yes.
Hmm.
Um, Going back to what you're saying, circling back, a lot of people on my channel, they ask me where I'm from. So I'm from Canada. So we're kind of country cousins, Lewis, right?
Uh-huh. We
Um,
share the royal family.
does does I know I shouldn't go I shouldn't go into politics, but I mentioned this on an Instagram story. My family is very loyal to the royal family,
Okay, interesting.
to the point that my mom and dad have a picture of Queen Elizabeth hanging on their bedroom wall.
Oh, wow. And did they pass this on to you?
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. Um, and so a lot of my viewers ask me, where are you from? Where are you from? So I'm from Canada, but I have going back, I have family that's from London, as well as on my mother's side from Ireland and Scotland, like the Copeland family, the Smith family, and then the Ford
Hmm.
family from England. And I also have family in the United States. So I don't know if you've interviewed other Canadians before, but it's it's a hybrid where they have the American accent, but
Uh-huh.
like British spelling, a little bit of uh, British grammar. So that's always been interesting to me as far as the British American thing, and I can see that it's very interesting to English learners, as I'm sure you know,
Right. And
on
re
Instagram.
related to that, a lot of your short form content at the moment, I noticed that it is comparing lots of British and American stuff, but I
Yes,
haven't seen that many differences that you've showcased between Canadian and British. Is there a reason why you don't focus on it as much, or is it just because maybe anything American maybe gets more views than Canadian? I'm not sure.
there's a reason for it,
Okay, interesting. Let's have a look at
and
that mug because that looks
oh,
very British, doesn't it? Don't be silly.
don't be silly, don't be silly. um, I think that in terms of the difference between Canadian and American English, because I have a lot of students, especially the new ones, and they say, well, I'm studying with you. Is there any difference between, for example, the American accent, standard American accent, and the
Hmm.
Canadian accent? And there really isn't, to the point that Americans and Canadians, when they're talking to each other, they don't know where they're from.
No.
I think if you were talking to an English teacher from the south of England, I think that you guys would know, who is from where. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. There are many regional differences in the UK, and of course, mine's more neutral, and there are other people who maybe have trained to have more of a BBC English, but
Yes,
despite that,
that's the
they're
one I
actually
shoot
from the
for.
north.
Yeah.
But like you can always tell more or less where someone's from. It's sometimes difficult to pinpoint unless they have a really like broad and thick accent, but you can always make a guess if they're from, uh, for example, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, the north of England, the south of
Yeah.
England, which doesn't happen anywhere near as much between anywhere in the US and in Canada as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting that we don't have the same wide range of accents that I think that you do in the UK, just
Mhm.
traveling 20 kilometers. Um, so in you asked me initially like why I don't cover Canadian English, and that's because the differences are so few. Um, There might be a few different words that are different, but we, as Canadians, we grew up on American TV. We speak, most Canadian cities are about an hour and a half drive from the United States, from the border, to give you an idea, which is a short distance for us.
Yeah.
Not for my students in Europe. What did you do this weekend? Oh, I went to Italy. Wow, you went to Italy? No, no, no. It was just like an hour and a half drive. um, so I think that's one reason, and the second reason that I don't do it is because what we talked about, the pronunciation. Basically, I mean, the grammar is basically the same, to the point that a lot of actors, that people who Hollywood actors that think are American, are in fact, many of them are Canadian. Yeah. Ryan,
Ryan Reynolds,
oh,
Ryan Gosling, the Ryans.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The Ryans. Uh, if you're an old Star Trek fan, William Shatner is Canadian. Keanu Reeves kind of grew up in Canada. Um,
Pamela Anderson.
Pamela Anderson. Did you ever see the movie About Time? Do you remember that movie? Is about, you don't
Yes,
remember?
I think so. I can't remember which one it is. There's a few that are related to time. Is it
It's
the one with Justin Timberlake and someone else where like time is the currency that they use? Or am
uh,
I
About Time is the one where I'm trying to remember the other actor's name. He's Irish, but he plays the part of a British man, and he goes into a closet and he clenches his fist and he can travel
uh,
anywhere. Do you remember
okay.
this movie?
Yeah, it's like the rom-com. Okay, Rachel McAdams is who you're
Oh,
thinking
you're
of.
good. You're good. Yeah. So
I'm
Rachel
cheating.
McAdams is. Are you cheating?
I was just quickly having a look. About Time film.
Could
That's
have
how I
fooled
know.
me. I thought you just kind of pulled that out of the ether. Um,
No, no, no.
Rachel McAdams is Canadian. She's from my province. She's from Ontario. So, right. I mean,
Right.
the difference is so minimal. That's why I've never done it. Maybe I'll do an Australian.
Why not? Why not? Now, I want to again use this phrasal verb that you used, which was to circle back. So I want to circle back on what you mentioned about the royal family. Um,
Oh,
so uh, Personally, I've had this discussion with my mum when I made videos with her that I'm like, for the royal family, meh. I don't see it as a negative thing, but I don't particularly love it either. Whereas my mum, when I ask her, she's like, oh no, they're really, really nice. They're amazing. So I have very few strong feelings towards it. But for you and for your parents, what was it about the royal family that captivated you so much?
well, I think actually, interestingly, for me, it goes back much further to Lady Diana, because when I was living in Brazil in the 90s, Lady Diana was an icon.
Yeah.
She was always in the media. She was she was something else. So, um I don't know. It's part of Canadian culture that they're very loyalist, and anytime they come from for a royal visit. But
Hmm.
I mean, to be honest, TBH, I wouldn't say that I have the same kind of you know loyalty that my parents have. I as I said, I usually don't go into politics. In the royal family, I really don't feel one way or another. Similar to what you're saying. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Exactly.
But my mom and dad have a picture of Queen Elizabeth on their wall.
Uh, that's
Does
pretty
your mother?
intense. No, no, no. So she agrees with it. She's in favor of it, but there are no shrines in the house.
Okay, okay.
No,
If she wants to know how to get one, I can leave my parents' phone number. I'm just kidding.
great. Send the details over. Now, let's go back in time a little bit more. So you mentioned you've been teaching English for the last 30 years,
Yes,
basically.
sir.
So
Yes, sir.
why did you choose to go down this career path? What was it at the time that made you think like, teaching English as a foreign language? That looks amazing.
Mhm. Yeah. My father was a teacher and a head teacher. Did you or headmaster?
Uh-huh.
And he taught Canadian immigrants a long time ago, and then he became a school principal. So he was a bit of a role model in terms of what I wanted to do. And I think you know this from personal experience that so you have an ability, a natural ability, a skill, a knack, and in my case, I have a knack for languages. And how can you put that to use, especially if you want to travel, get to know other cultures? How can you pay the bills to do that?
Mhm.
And how it's a chance to meet new people and really immerse yourself in the culture. And that's what I did in terms of the, the beginnings of my career. So I almost, I almost want to ask you. I want to put the ball back in your court,
Of course.
and I wonder if you had a similar experience with, how you started out, or was it just
Yeah.
happenstance, or
I mean, in my case, it was a bit weird because it was never like a specific calling that I had, which was like, oh, I love languages and that's what I'm going to dedicate my life to. It was more kind of, it was always on the back burner, let's say. It was always like a backup option because I remember ever since I was at primary school and secondary school, with the very, very limited amount of time that we had for French classes and Spanish classes, I remember finding it like fun. It was a bit of a release where you could act a little bit and you could kind of make fun out of a language almost and pretend to be a character that you've seen in a film or a series. So for that
wonderful?
reason, I remember it being like, oh, this is pretty cool. And at the same time, I remember that I got into watching like travel documentaries. So when I was a teenager, I was always like watching like a documentary of China, of Colombia, of Brazil, of all of these amazing places around the world. And I was thinking to myself, like, I want to visit these places, but I don't want to visit them like traditional English people might visit places where they'll go and depend on other people using English all the time. I want to really immerse myself in the local culture to feel like I'm using this superpower, which is learning a language and being able to communicate with other people. So that was the kind of the idea in the back of my mind. And I was never really sure if I wanted to do it as a profession or not. But I knew I wanted to go to university. And I thought, given that I don't know what I want to do in life, if I study languages, this will open up many possibilities and like basically postpone the decision making. So it's like
Good way of putting it.
I'm not gonna like be like I'm going to be a lawyer 100%. No, I'm gonna study languages and then maybe I'll be a teacher, maybe I'll be a translator, maybe I'll just get any old job, but
Yeah,
using languages. So that's kind of a summary of my situation.
it's kind of a coincidence because for some reason I was thinking about this before, you know, we finally got connected after I figured out my camera and my mic. Um, was what you're talking about in terms of almost taking on a new persona. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
the the Spanish speaking you, for example. And I quite feel that when I'm speaking Portuguese, I really throw myself into the part. So
Yeah.
you can be like English speaking Lewis, but then you can, when you're speaking Spanish, you're not only speaking the other language, but you're also, perhaps using the same mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
You're a different person. Yes.
Exactly. I mean, you have different personalities almost, or at least different ways of expressing yourself. And nowadays, I use lots of gestures, and maybe
Oh, me
that's
too.
something I've
Yeah,
taken from being in Italy or in Spain or in Argentina.
definitely.
And there are different things that you pick up along the way of your life. This is very philosophical, but you are who you hang out with, and the
Yeah,
people that you spend time with, and the people that you follow on social media as well, will have an impact on who you are ideologically and also how you behave. So I think you do have different personalities, but then all of these different personalities kind of blend and mesh together into one. So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing to think about, and there should definitely be more studies on exactly the impact of learning another language and how that
Hmm.
can change your way of being and your personality.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And I think the people that are more successful at learning a language would be the people that can really throw themselves into the part, so to speak. Maybe that's
100%.
too advanced for our learners. Maybe we should break that down. Somebody who can assume or take on the role of somebody in another culture, another personality. Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, I
And they
I
kind
think
of
that's very
throw themselves into the deep end. And then with that, it's sink or swim, really. Are you able to communicate or not? And then if you're able to act and kind of get on with different people from different cultures without depending on your mother tongue, then voila, you've got it.
yeah. It definitely takes a lot of courage to do that. Of course, nowadays with the help of technology, it's a lot easier
Mm-hmm.
than I don't I don't know like so when you first went to Argentina was when would that have been? Like how
It
many years?
was like 12, 13 years ago.
13 years ago.
So it was when I was 20, yeah, 20, and I turned 21 when I was there. And I was
Yeah.
there for 6 months. And immediately after, I went to Italy for 6 months. And then a year after that, that's when I moved to Spain. So it was all in
Mhm.
my early 20s.
Yeah, so 13 years ago. So 13 years 2012. Yeah. So technology even at that time was not as advanced as it is today.
Mhm.
Um, we had YouTube. I don't believe, no, Instagram, I don't think really started to come into prominence until 2020. Um, so you had access to things online, but really you're kind of like trying to rely on your own resources.
Exactly. I remember when I was at university studying languages, that was the beginning of language learning apps. So I remember that was when I first discovered apps like Duolingo or
Hmm.
Babbel or Busuu. They were the
Yeah,
ones that were like the first in the market, but I
yeah.
never actually used them during the first couple of years at university. It was only in the third or fourth where then I was like, "Ooh, this is so much more fun than like getting a book and writing down notes and everything like that." And Instagram, I think, did exist and it was a thing back when I was on my year abroad,
I
but it
think it
was
was a
only a
dating app at
thing.
that time. Yeah.
I think it was just a photo app at that time.
Oh.
So the big shift with Instagram was like you said, in 2020, more or less, when TikTok changed the game and reinvented the rules of like algorithms.
Hmm.
So then the Instagram had to adapt and kind of copy what TikTok were doing.
Hmm.
So Instagram became like a video platform that it is now, much more than just like a photo sharing app.
Hmm. We know it.
Crazy. But so tell me about Brazil. Why did you go to Brazil in the first place? And what was it like for you to be able to improve and learn your Portuguese whilst you were there?
So the first time that I went to Brazil was through a government program, Canada World Youth. So it was an exchange for young adults, whereby for 3 months, a group of Brazilians would come to Canada and would live with their counterpart,
Hmm.
and then they would live in a small community and work in a small community for 3.5 months, and then after that, the whole group of Canadians and Brazilians went to different remote cities in Brazil and do that for 3.5 months. So that was my first contact with Brazil and with Quebec, Canada, because that's a whole other uh, reality. Let's say it's different. It's within North America, so it's almost like a country within a country as well. So that's how I found out about Brazil, and of course I fell in love as soon as I set foot in Brazil. The energy, the air, the music at that time, the food. You know what I'm talking about, Lewis.
I've never been to Brazil though. That's the thing. That's why I'm curious to know more about what it's actually like because everybody I ask, they say like, "Oh, Brazil is amazing. It's just there's something that you can't quite put your finger on about how special it is because of the vibe and the people."
Mm.
So if you were there for a few months, did you then go back and stay for many more years? Like, what's
Yes,
the story?
yeah. So I returned to Canada, got my TESOL certificate, and saved up some money and went back to Brazil by myself. And I ended up living there for a total of on and off 8 years.
Okay.
And it was a wonderful experience. And one of the things that happened there, and you know this because perhaps you noticed this in Argentina, is that in South America, you'll have like this neighborhood where you have the English schools, and on one side of the street you have the American English school, and then on the other side of the street you have cultura britânica, like
Uh-huh.
you have, or cultura inglesa, like you have these British schools. So I've taught it both, of course, and that was part of my life experience even at that time living in Brazil. But uh, circling back to your initial question, yeah, it was. I went there. I went back there on my own, and the music there, the culture, the food, the energy. For me, it was life changing. Yeah.
And whereabouts were you in Brazil? Because Brazil is just enormous. Obviously,
Yes.
Canada is as well. But coming
Yes.
from Europe, when you see the sizes of all of these
Yeah.
different countries, it's like, wait, that's a continent.
Yeah. 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 We could have several countries in this
Yeah.
country. Yeah. Um, so I lived in the northeast of Brazil in a city called Recife.
Mhm.
And I also lived and worked in the south of Brazil. Yeah. Belo Horizonte, Sao Paulo. I've been to Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro is beautiful. Mm.
Okay. I'm not going to put you on the spot to say what's better between the north and the south of Brazil, but what
No,
are
no,
the
my Brazilian
differences?
fans will start fighting in the comment section.
Don't worry, I won't say it. But I'm curious, what are the big differences between the south and the north without revealing any preferences?
The north of Brazil is hotter. The north of Brazil is much more arid, and the economic engine, shall we say, is in the south of Brazil.
Mhm.
The north of Brazil, um, they have agriculture and things like that. A lot of tourism for beaches. Hmm. The south of Brazil is more the industrial part of the country. Yeah.
Okay. And whilst you were in Brazil, did you ever go into the Amazon rainforest?
No, never did. Never did. No, no. But I was you do see a lot of different. I was saying to a student the other day that you could go, for a walk in the park and see monkeys. I remember that.
Pretty cool.
Sometimes they give a piece of banana. Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
Great. It sounds lovely. It's definitely on my bucket list that I want to go to Brazil as soon as possible. But then maybe it's my own excuse, but I always think because it's so big, if I go there and I've only got like 2 weeks holiday, would it be enough? And then I'd want to go back to Brazil some other time in the future.
Probably.
So then
Yeah.
maybe I'd like, okay, maybe I go to the north of Brazil or I go to the south of Brazil. If there are any Brazilians here watching, let me know where you're from in Brazil and where I should visit.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
There's definitely some must see tourist spots for you to go. Yes, yeah, you would need a lot, but it depends on what your preference is. If you prefer the beaches, or if you want to go to museums, like what do you prefer? Yeah.
Museums, to be honest, it might come across badly, but I just can't be bothered. Whenever I go to visit a different city, it's the last thing I want to do. What I
Oh, oh,
like, go on.
sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. But I forgot to mention that I lived for a year in Paris,
Okay,
close
we'll
to the
move on to that.
Louvre.
So, museum land.
We used to rollerblade around the Louvre at night. It was very cool.
Okay.
Um, and that would be my only exception, I think, with regard to what you're saying about museums. Would be to the Louvre. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
You see, for me, like, whenever I'm like doing a little day trip or a weekend getaway, all I want to do is walk around, sit in some nice squares,
Yeah.
put my sunglasses on,
Yeah.
drink a beer or something else,
Yeah.
eat the local food, and just
Yeah.
walk around and then like admire the buildings and the parks and stuff like that. But then
Yeah.
I'll only ever go to a museum if it's raining, and then I'm like, okay, well, we might as well. There's not much else we can do. And it's
Well,
funny
maybe.
because it's raining at the moment as well, which is why it looks a bit dark. Maybe the end of the
Yeah.
world, who knows?
Yeah. But maybe we could use it in an Instagram reel.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lost in the Louvre.
The Mona Lisa. Yeah, there you go.
Uh,
We'll start with the Mona Lisa. Yeah. Okay.
what is it about the Louvre then? What is so special about it? If that's your exception in terms of museums, what was it about the Louvre that you liked so much?
There are so many exhibits. There are so many sections to that museum.
Mhm.
The Egyptian part, ancient Greece, the level of detail and the amount of things that they have there. Um, yeah, it was amazing. It was, and yet not similar to Brazil. You need more time to explore. One
Mhm.
day's not enough. Yeah.
Wow. I've been to Paris once and I
Did you
loved it.
practice your French?
A little bit. Un petit peu, oui.
Okay, un petit peu. Yeah, parce que whenever I if because at least at that time, if you didn't speak perfect French, then they would say your English that your French was bad. But I think it's improved, especially at hotels with tourists. That you know, hmm,
No, I think I've got some different French students as well, and I've taught different companies in France, and I think the level is definitely improving. And there was this idea in the past that French people didn't want to use English because they wanted other people to practice French, which I kind
yeah,
of admire in a way, but I think it is changing now or has already changed to
yes,
the point where nowadays, like French people are very I don't know, global as well and speak
yeah.
very good English, or at least a lot better than my French.
Oh, and they use a lot of Anglicisms
Yeah.
in French nowadays, especially business English. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So life in Paris, what was that like?
It was definitely different from Brazil.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Um, and I got to know the underground, the metro, very well because I was traveling to all of the companies to
Hmm.
teach them. I was going on site, so it was an amazing experience to see the different pace of life there as well, and how people live, how people work. It was kind of like, did you ever see that movie Amelie? It's an older movie, Amelie,
Yes, I've
the
seen it,
amazing
but I
story
don't
of.
remember really like focusing that much. But
Mm,
yeah, I have
yeah,
watched it.
yeah, yeah. So anybody's flat that you go into, it's like going into a museum where there are all these collections of artwork and uh, antiques. It was very much like that, And I met a lot of different characters that could, you know, be part of a story, part of a novel. And this was something that I wanted to mention because I was expecting perhaps a question about how technology, especially nowadays, is changing the landscape for English teachers and for language learning.
Hmm.
And my idea is that there are some English teachers that are have a considerable following right now, and you're one of them, and I, I'm also one of them, and there are some others, and individuals like yourself and myself, we teach English, but we also have living experience. We have stories. And I'm sure that you could probably tell me stories of just those 6 months in Argentina, because I'm sure that life in Argentina in one day, more things could happen than in 30 days. In yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so you have a backlog of life stories, yes.
Uh-huh.
And I think that those stories are important because they're your life experience that you can imprint and use as examples in your lessons with your students. And those are very memorable. And I think that's very important. And the reason I mention that is because I think that AI will replace a lot of the teachers who teach more basic things and are robotic. And I wanted your feed. Okay, you're nodding.
No,
Yes.
no. It's an interesting thing because I'm very pro AI, but also interested in just how the world is going to change with the revolution of AI. And of
Yes.
course, you see it all over the news at the moment that all of the big companies and governments are putting a lot of effort and financing into AI. But I think there will be more negative consequences than positive consequences for the world as a whole. And I often discuss this with my students as well. It's like, okay, how can I future proof myself knowing what's about to come and happen with AI? Because I've done collaborations before with AI apps. I use ChatGPT on a daily basis. I've used different video editing software with AI. In fact, what we're using at the moment, after recording, I will then add a little tool which is called Magic Audio, and then that'll mean that our audio is the same. So I think there are so many amazing advantages to AI, and I think those who embrace it will be able to get ahead of the curve.
Hmm.
But I think for the vast majority of people that work in our sector as English teachers, will suffer the consequences of the revolution of AI and maybe end up being without a job, which is why I think like the important thing is to have a personal brand, and that way you can future proof yourself from the impact of AI. And that's kind of
Bravo.
why I started doing it, and making videos, because I think there will always be people who want to have real conversations with real people. And then there will
Yes.
be other many people who just want to practice their speaking with a generic bot. And both of these options are okay. Everybody is free to choose what they prefer. But I think my bet on the future is that the more of the personal brand and identity and personality I have, the more future proof I will become.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So I consider myself lucky that I got into the market and established a presence on social media when I did, because I think now we're really entering into the phase where AI is going to phase out the more robotic tasks that English
Uh-huh.
teachers do. And now with the advent of things like Google VEO3, where they can create a video of someone using a text prompt,
Mm-hmm.
and neither you nor I can recognize if it's real or fake. I think sometimes you can recognize when it's fake.
I think usually you can at the moment, but if that's the quality right now, imagine how good it'll be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Right.
Then you won't be able to tell the difference.
Right. So it's my firm belief that you if you establish your brand and you can share your life stories, your experiences, your everything, that all the people that crossed paths with you in your life, if you can share that with your English learners, that makes you a seasoned teacher. That gives you that makes you interesting, and that's something that AI can't do. AI can synthesize that. Maybe they can make an AI version of Lewis or an AI version of Steve, but it won't have the same intrinsic meaning or feeling. It just won't. And there will be people that will want to study with someone like that.
Mhm.
I guarantee it. There, of course, will be people who want to save money. Oh, I'll just, you know, I'll study with AI, generic John or Jane. But that's my feeling. So I think that there's still hope, but I think a lot of it will become automated as it will in other sectors, definitely. But I think there's still hope.
No, I
Hmm.
agree, and I think it's interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how everything changes because there will be the pro technology people who will always say that with any technological revolution, there will be new opportunities and other jobs will be lost, of course.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to think that there will be that many new jobs that will be created when you compare it to the amount of jobs that will be lost. And then this goes into a further debate about how it will increase perhaps inequality because there will be more and more people who will have nothing, and then the few people will have a lot. And that's kind of veering off into a different debate. But
Yes.
it is something that it's going to be interesting to see. If you were a fly on the wall and watching how the world and humankind will change with AI, it might be a little bit like one of these sci-fi films, but time will tell.
Time will tell. And I think it depends on how the younger generation is going to react. But have you ever noticed comments under Instagram reels, for example, and they will. I've had this question. I don't know if you have. Is they will ask like, "Are you AI?
Oh, really?
Are you AI?" So what's implied in that is like, I don't want to be watching AI. I want to watch a real person.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how willingly the younger generation would follow an AI influencer, for example. I know some people will. So, as you said, it's going to be an interesting social experiment.
No, 100%. Now, that's an
Yeah.
interesting way as well to kind of wrap up this conversation because recently I've started a new hobby and it is
Uh,
playing paddle, which is all the
oh,
rage
cool.
at the moment. So it's kind of an easier version of tennis. So
Yeah.
I've got to go in a few minutes and get ready for paddle. But on that note, we can finish with a relevant question. Um, in your free time, normally, what do you do?
I video edit.
24/7.
No, but in all seriousness, what do I do in my free time? I love to go running on the beach. I am also a musician, so I practice my classical guitar. I also play sitar sometimes. I have a sitar from India. I like to lift weights. I have some dumbbells. I have a dumbbell routine that I like to do. Those are watch movies. Uh,
And video edit.
oh, yeah, that's my middle name. Video edit. Steve Video Edit Ford. And don't be silly.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, we will call it a day for today. And again, if
Lovely.
we have any Brazilians, let me know in the comments where I should visit. Thank you, everybody, for watching. A pleasure, Steve, having you on the channel. I had a great
Likewise.
laugh and an interesting chat about the future of AI.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, everybody. See you later. Bye bye.